The NHL trade deadline is a week away, but not everybody is waiting around to make their moves. We just had a major trade involving the Anaheim Ducks and Colorado Avalanche. We'll get into the details right now. Hey everybody, so some big time news tonight on the trade front in the NHL. We just had a pretty major deal go down between the Anaheim Ducks and the Colorado Avalanche involving defenseman Josh Manson. Let's get right into it here and talk about what just happened. Here's the full trade from Frank Saravelli to Colorado. We have defenseman Josh Manson, who's obviously been with the Anaheim Ducks for the last number of seasons. And to Anaheim, we have defensive prospect Drew Helleson and a 2023 second-round pick. Also, important note here that the Ducks retain half of Manson's $4.1 million AAV, which makes him on the books for just over $2 million for Colorado, which allows Colorado to still have just under $1.5 million left to work with as far as cap space, and that is if they don't put Landeskog or Girard on LTIR. If Gabe Landeskog or Samuel Girard goes on LTIR, they're both out injured right now, that cap space would significantly increase for the Colorado Avalanche. But all in all here, obviously, two teams trying to do very different things at this point. Anaheim has kind of fallen out of the playoff race in the West. They have not been playing well recently. They've fallen back of the teams that are ahead of them. So this is a build for the future move for the Anaheim Ducks, but it's a pretty good one. Drew Helleson is a pretty solid prospect, and they also get a second-round pick out of it. For Colorado, this is obviously very much a win-now move. Josh Manson is in the final year of his contract, but he's a pretty solid defensive defenseman who can bring some bang on the back end as well, something that Colorado is definitely going to need in the playoffs. So let's take a look at things here. First off, Colorado gets Josh Manson. 30-year-old defenseman, 6'3", 218 pounds, very physical player. He has 9 points in 45 games this season, as well as 53 penalty minutes. Like I said, he's not afraid to get involved physically. Injuries, unfortunately, have kind of hampered Manson for the last few years. If you go back to his 2017-2018 season, Josh Manson had 37 points that year, was a plus 34, and had 62 penalty minutes for the Ducks. And at that point, it really seemed like Manson might break out to be a top pair defensive defenseman, but that never really came to be because his offensive numbers have really dropped off since. Anaheim obviously has been going through a rebuild the last few years, and he's went down to 16 points in 74 games the year after, 9 points in 2020, 7 points last year. His offense has really tailed off, back up to 9 points this year, but he's a guy that for the Colorado Avalanche and currently what they're playing on D is certainly an upgrade over Curtis McDermott, is certainly an upgrade over Ryan Murray, is certainly an upgrade over Jack Johnson. You know, those are three guys for Colorado with Samuel Girard now out of the lineup that were all in Colorado's lineup last night. They were all in Colorado's lineup last night on the back end. McDermott, Jack Johnson, and Ryan Murray. Manson's an upgrade over all of those guys. So this is going to significantly improve the Colorado Avalanche on defense. So for Colorado, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a win-now move, but they're certainly a win-now team. And he's a D-man with some experience, a good number of games played in his career at 453, and brings that playoff physicality to their back end and makes them a better team. From the Anaheim Ducks point of view, I mean, this is a solid move for the future. Josh Manson was a pending free agent. He was probably going to be gone at the end of the year anyway. You can't re-sign everybody. And they get Drew Helleson out of this, who's a pretty darn good prospect. He's 20 years old. He was a second-round pick of the Avalanche back in 2019. He's currently playing at Boston College, where I've gotten to see him play quite a bit. He's one of the top defensemen for Boston College. 6'3", 190 pounds. Very much a puck-moving defenseman. Good skater, especially for his size. But moves the puck well. Solid puck handler. He's just overall a pretty solid prospect. And if you look at what he's done with Boston College, this year is his junior year. He's got 25 points in 32 games this season. Last year as a sophomore, he had 15 points in 22 games. And obviously as a freshman, he only had 6 points. He kind of really has just grown year in and year out, getting better each step of the way for Boston College. He's also played World Juniors, obviously. He had 4 points in 7 games in 2020 with Team USA in the World Juniors. Really solid prospect here if you're the Anaheim Ducks. Again, they're betting on this to be a move for the future. They're betting on Drew Helleson turning into a defenseman that will eventually be as good or better than Josh Manson. They also get a second-round pick out of it. So not only do they get a second-round pick prospect in Drew Helleson, but they get their own second-round pick in 2023 where they get to make the pick themselves as well. So all in all, this is a very significant move here. This is a pretty big trade, a week before the deadline. But I think both teams kind of get what they were looking for. For Anaheim, you've kind of fallen out of the playoff race. You're not going to win this year. You're not going to make the playoffs this year. Continue building for that future. Continue trying to get young players like Drew Helleson and draft picks of your own to continue to build what they've already started building in Anaheim, who all in all, despite probably not making the playoffs this year, has been a lot better than most people expected. So you just got to keep building on that and heading in the right direction. I think this trade helps them do that. For Colorado, you're in a completely different position right now. If you're Colorado, you are all in on winning the Stanley Cup. You are not thinking about 3 years down the road. You're not even thinking about next year if you're Colorado. You are doing whatever you think it's going to take to win the Stanley Cup this season. And Josh Manson, even though he's probably just a rental, is in the final year of his contract. He absolutely makes you a better team for the rest of this year and for the playoffs than without him. He's an upgrade to their back end. I don't know if he'll play middle pair or if he'll play on the bottom pair, but either way, he's an upgrade for the Colorado Avalanche. He's going to help out their defense, assuming he stays healthy. And that's the big thing with Josh Manson, is he's had quite a bit of injury issues over the past 3 years, I would say. So they really are going to need him to stay healthy. But if he can do that, he can be a significant contributor on the back end for the Colorado Avalanche, and I think this deal makes a lot of sense for them as well, because they're not worried about Drew Helleson being a great defenseman in 3 or 4 years. They're worried about winning the cup right now. So I think both of these teams kind of get pieces that make sense for where they are currently at this point. So major trade news today: Josh Manson to the Colorado Avalanche, prospect Drew Helleson and a second-round pick to the Anaheim Ducks. I think all in all, it's a pretty fair trade. Both teams get what they could certainly use, and we'll see how it works out long-term, but I think Colorado has certainly made their defense better with this move here today. With that, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our merchandise store, membership, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.